Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thank you so much for joining me as we do a product review on Winsor Newton's Studio Watercolor Collection. And as you can see, I have the box here. This is from Dick Blick, and that's where I purchased this, and it says right on the box, front and back, exactly what is in here, but then something goes amiss up here. What on earth? I mean, Dick Blick, what on earth? And you can tell it's been taken apart before, tape has been pulled off. It looks like a part number is written on there. So I don't know. I feel like I'm at a parts store wanting an alternator or something. I don't know what that's about, but it is their watercolor pencil set. You can see on the back where it lists the 5 different categories, and we're going to go over that in a second. And then you have the artist spotlight there, and those are the colors. And you see, you have these little ribbons to pull those out. And that one, when I got it, was turned backwards. And so I flipped it back around, but it got me wondering, have these pencils been used? So I took all of them out and I took a look, and they looked fine, but I noticed that at the edge of the box, this is the way they're supposed to be lined up in the box. It is lined up that way because I lined it up that way. They were all mixed up in like 3 out of the 5 boxes, but the tips are squared off. So I know they weren't used. I checked every one of them. None of them were used. But I don't know, when you're paying that much, those are the colors, they match up. When you're paying that much for pencils, if it's a return, that's fine, it's a return, but send it back to me the way you sent it out to the person before. So here are the colors that you get in this set. You get floral tones, skyscape, foliage, landscape, and skin tones. And you get 10 pencils in each set. And I'm really excited about the skin tones because I love to do portraits. So you can see those are the colors lined up there. And now let's take a look at each of the boxes. So I'm going to pull out the floral tones first, and I have some pre-cut sheets that go right inside. So let's swatch these out. Let's see how they work, and let's take a look at the pencils in each one. So as we take a look at this set, you have a violet, burnt orange, green, apricot, butter yellow, dusk rose, burnt carmine, olive green, china blue, and antique pink. And spoiler alert, I loved every color in this set. But we'll talk about at the end whether it's worth it to buy this set. Now, as I'm coloring, I want to go from dark to light. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on at the beginning, and then I'm going a little bit lighter as I go to the right hand side. And I'm going to do that with each one of these, and then we're going to come back and apply water to them and see how they look with water on them. One thing that I'm always hesitant about with watercolor pencils, and I do have a Derwent Ink Tints, which is an ink-based pencil. So if you have those, they won't work the same as these. These won't work the same as those. They're 2 different creatures. Honestly, I like these better, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we're going to go ahead and put all these down, and I'm working on a cold press paper, and I'll have my paper and stuff linked down below if you want to take a look. And it colors like butter. Now you can use these pencils, they say, as regular colored pencils, or you can use them as watercolor pencils. Now these are my standard supplies. I have a microfiber cloth, I have my size 3 round with the Winsor Newton, and I have a cup of water. Now most generally when I am working on doing a swatching, I like to use one of those water brushes that already has water in it. But I don't have a water brush that says Winsor Newton, and it seemed kind of wrong to use a brush that was not Winsor Newton. So I'm going to use my size 3. And really, you should start at the light side and move to the dark side. As I'm doing in this one, I'm doing it properly. I didn't do that in the antique pink at the top, but I haven't been feeling well lately. I've had a lot of muscle pain, and so I wasn't thinking straight, and you'll see that later on because I'll forget to show you my pencils, and then I remember to show you my pencils, but we will make it through. Now, I loved these colors. One thing that I'm looking for in these, when I apply the water, do the pencil marks disappear? Does it look like watercolor, Or does it look like it's a watercolor pencil, but I can still see the marks underneath? And I hate that. And that is something to get with the Derwent ink tints. Again, we're kind of comparing apples to oranges there because that is an ink-based product, and it's not like a colored pencil, which has wax in it. But that's something that those pencils do. You can see the lines in them when you come back and put water on top. You really have to work to blend those out. I didn't have to work on this. I just applied a little bit of water and they just blended right out. You can see just, look at those colors too. They are so vibrant. And that's another spoiler alert for you. You're gonna find that in each one of these sets. I don't think there is a color in this entire set that I don't just absolutely love. So with that, that's the floral. Let's go on to the skyscape. And that is so hard for me to say. Winsor Newton, if you're listening, skyscape is hard for me to say. So let's take a look at the colors. Midnight blue, cornflower blue, apricot, turquoise, caramel, and magenta. Then we have steel gray, cool gray 4, ice gray 3, and dusky rose. I think I said dusk rose in the first one, but it's dusky rose. And did you catch what I said there in the first one? That's the only thing about this set, and we'll talk more when we get to the end of this video about it, but you will see colors that are duplicated in these sets. And I understand why they did it, because you're curating a set. So when you have the floral set, those are the colors that they're recommending for floral. And I love that about it. That was the whole reason I bought the set. And if you go online and you look, you can see that they have listed on there all the colors. And if you zoom in, you can see that the colors are duplicated. How many are duplicated? Hang on, we're going to talk about that at the end. Now I'll have to say, that last blue color I just put down, oh my goodness, I love that color. I think that's one of my favorite. So we're going to be doing the same thing on each of these sets. We're going to come in, put all the colors down, go from dark to light, and then when we put the water on, go from light to dark, and just get a good feel for the colors. I am going to come back and do a grid for each one of these where we're going to do a color mixing of the 10 colors in each set, so that I will know how they're going to mix together when I'm using them for a project. And we'll talk about my first project when we get closer to the end of this video. But look at that. Look at that color. Just so vibrant. Every one of them. I was not disappointed. I am so glad I chose to go with Winsor Newton. I have been looking at different companies and their pencils, trying to decide exactly which colored pencil I want to try. And I'm doing what you're doing now. I'm looking at YouTube videos, watching people swatch them out, listening to their reviews, and it all gets kind of confusing. But I knew that I loved Winsor Newton watercolor. I knew I loved their brushes. So I thought, you know, I'm going to go ahead and do this set. And the way I came across this set was Winsor & Newton's short on the set. So let's take a look at our next set. This is foliage. Now they have floral and they have foliage. I'm glad they separated them because they need to be separated. So we're going to start with plum, and then we have shell, we have burnt carmine, terracotta, wood green, which I absolutely love, grass, just green, which I thought was funny, amber, yellow, and then butter yellow again. So you may have seen some duplicates in there. And we're going to start with that butter yellow. I think of all the pencils, I did love all the colors, but I think butter yellow for me was a little bit of a disappointment as far as mixing. When I get to some of my mixing videos, and you won't see the mixing in this one. I'm going to do those separately. Otherwise, we're going to have like a 3-hour long video and no one wants to sit through that. The green is green. I would have probably called that, I don't know, maybe Kelly green. would that be Kelly green? Take a look at it once we put the water on. Let me know what you think below. But loved all the greens, especially that wood green. That was just my absolute favorite. So we're going to keep with the same process here. I'm going to go from dark to light as I'm putting the pressure on. Then I'm going to start at the right hand side with the water and apply the water from the right to the left. And we're going to take a look at all the colors. And then I'll hop back on in a second and talk some more. Until then, have a little musical interlude. So far, there are no losers in this set either. I love all the colors. Let's move on to the landscape tones. And again, they've separated them out from the foliage and the floral, and that's great. So we have the wood green, lush green, violet, turquoise, cornflower blue, ice gray 3, still gray, warm gray 5, lipstick red, which I also loved, and raw sienna. So we're going to go ahead and work through these. This is a really great color. I've seen this color before. I think of it as kind of a goldenrod, but when you apply the water to it, all of these look a little bit different. Something I'm looking forward to is using these not only as watercolor pencils, but once I get finished with the watercolor part, using them to come back and get some definition in areas that we want a sharper edge. And I think that these pencils will be perfect for that. When I'm doing my first project, and that will be coming up in probably maybe a couple of weeks, or maybe it's next week. I'm not sure what order these are in. I also have a pen video coming up. I want to share with you a new fountain pen, but I'm going to be using this paper. This is the cold press paper. I am going to get some hot press so that we can take a look at how it works on smooth paper. Just didn't have any of that on hand. I really love cold press paper, but in order to see how this is going to look as a regular colored pencil, I'd like to have some smooth paper for that. See what I mean about the yellow and the red? I love that lipstick red. That is awesome. My daughter passed through the room about this point, and again, that's why I always do voiceovers, because things are going on in my house. And she said, "Ooh, I like that red." I said, "Great, that's lipstick red right there." So again, we're going to keep on with this. I'll hop back on in a second, and we'll talk about the next set. Finishing up with my favorite green there, let's move on to our next set. And these are the skin tones. I've been waiting for this one. I love portraits. That's what I love to do. So let's take a look. Again, we have Shell, Warm Gray 5, and then if I can get it turned, we have Cocoa, and then we have Umber, Raw Sienna, Caramel, Burnt Carmine, Pastel Pink, Almond, and Soft Peach. Now, these are all excellent skin tones, beautiful skin tones. I would absolutely use every one of these for skin tones. However, I kind of think that this set should have been a little bit larger, maybe more than 10 pencils, to include some shading colors, because I'm not going to be using the browns for shading necessarily. It depends on my skin tone. I'm probably going to be using some blues and purples, and I'll take a look at that at the end so you can see the ones that I would use if I were doing a skin tone set, what I would want added to that. But again, these are beautiful, rich colors for skin tones. And we're going to go ahead and get the rest of these down and start applying the water. While we are finishing the water on this set, I do want to say, if this set is appealing to you, or if just the Winsor & Newton watercolor sets in general are appealing to you, and you live in the United States, this is August of 2025. So unfortunately, those tariffs have been put into effect. And I hate that so much because it just kind of hurts us on this. So if you see something you like, I got these at Dick Blick. You know, I still recommend Dick Blick. Take a look on there and get those now, because when they're gone, who knows, they might be gone for a while. So here are all of our sets, and I've written the colors. I've scrawled them out in my pitiful handwriting, but you can see the colors that we have. And here is a list that I made out of the colors that are duplicated. There were 16 duplicated colors. So you're getting 50 pencils, but you are getting 16 that are duplicated. So you have, and I'm pointing them out there, those are the colors that are going to be duplicated, and those are the sets that they are in. And I hate that. Again, I understand why they did it. I would still buy this set, absolutely. However, if I were you, I would go online and take a look at their larger set. They have a set of 72 pencils, and I think you're only going to be paying like 30 bucks more, and you can get 72 pencils that include these colors. So go ahead and think about getting a bigger set. You're going to love it. Pay more money, get the bigger set. If I had it to do again, yeah, I would buy this set. But what I might do is take a look at the colors they put in the curated sets, and I would definitely buy the bigger set and do that. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be making this in the next video, and I'll have all the colors there so you can see how they mix together. And if I'm looking at these sets, these are the skin tones, and this is what I was talking about. Love these skin tones. However, I would have probably included maybe the plum or the midnight blue, maybe even some of the grays, like the steel gray, to do some shadows. So if you're thinking about skin tones and you're going to buy like the big set, but you're looking at their stuff, I would go ahead and add those in. But here, let's take another look at the box before we go, because it's a beautiful packaging. Oh, look at that art on the front. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the Studio Collection, I highly recommend it. And here is the artist on the back, Helen Greenup, I believe is how you say her name. And there's a little QR code up there if you want to scan that. I'll move out of the way so you could do that. And those are the colors on the back. And that's what you're going to see online. And I would zoom in and take a look, but you can see those, they don't hide it from you. Those are the colors. They are duplicated on there. So if you have any questions about this set, or if you have this set, Please let us know down below what you think. I know you love it because I absolutely loved it. I am not sponsored by Winsor Newton. If you're watching this, Winsor Newton, I would love to be. I heart you. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I have some things coming up pretty soon. I hope you will join me for those. But until then, my friends, I will see you in the next one.